Hey, welcome back to Clean Cut, where we can talk about the truth about just about anything, as long as we use logic and common sense.
This season, we're returning to the topic of the Psalms and their meaning. Now, a brief disclaimer before getting into this psalm. The Psalms will be numbered differently in different translations of the Bible. This is a very, very old discrepancy, and to help clear things up, I'll be explaining what number the psalm has in the Douay-Rheims Bible and in the Revised Standard Version. However, the episodes themselves will list psalm numbers as they're given in the Douay-Rheims Bible. Sorry if this is confusing. Anyway, this is Psalm 80 in the Douay-Rheims Bible, but Psalm 81 in the RSV. Unto the end, for the winepresses, a psalm for Asaph himself. Again, Asaph was in charge of the service of music during the reigns of David and Solomon. As far as winepresses, they're not mentioned in this psalm, which means that this isn't a song about winepresses. However, little titles like these often refer to how the song is to be used instead. St. Augustine believed that the winepresses represented the church or temple of God, but I don't think it's necessary to go that far from the literal meaning of the words. This could just as easily be a psalm that was written to be sung at a feast associated with wine, like a Feast of Tabernacles, which took place just after the harvest, which included the harvesting of grapes and making them into new wine. It could even be the case that people were using an empty winepress to produce music in those times, though it's hard to imagine it being especially useful for that purpose, in a way that ordinary drums wouldn't be. Rejoice to God our helper. Sing aloud to the God of Jacob. Take a psalm, and bring hither the timbrel, the pleasant psaltery with the harp. Blow up the trumpet on the new moon, on the noted day of your solemnity. Clearly, a description of making music on a special holy day. The word solemnity is used to refer to many of the most important holy days in the Catholic Church, even to this day. To the people of Israel at the time, the new moon was a phase of the moon that represented the start of the month, and was a time for celebration, rest, and special sacrifices at the temple. Timbrels, psalteries, harps, and trumpets are all, of course, musical instruments. For it is a commandment in Israel, and a judgment to the God of Jacob. The people of Israel were expected to be joyful and grateful on special days like this one. In fact, there are multiple spots in the Bible that command the people to be joyful. He ordained it for a testimony in Joseph. When he came out of the land of Egypt, he heard a tongue which he knew not. He removed his back from the burdens. His hands had served in baskets. Joseph, son of Jacob, entered the land of Egypt, but as far as we know, he didn't leave it again, and didn't do a great deal of manual labor there while serving as Pharaoh's right-hand man. Because of this, I think this psalm is most likely following the tendency of many Hebrew writings of using a name to mean all the descendants of the person named. So this psalm is saying that God gave joy to the Israelites when he brought them out of Egypt and took away the heavy burdens they'd carried there. Thou calledst upon me in affliction, and I delivered thee. I heard thee in the secret place of tempest. I proved thee at the waters of contradiction. Hear, O my people, and I will testify to thee. O Israel, if thou wilt hearken to me, there shall be no new God in thee, neither shalt thou adore a strange God. Here, the speaker is no longer the writer of the psalm. It's now God who's speaking. God is saying that when the people called out to him, he saved them, and also tested them, giving them his commandments. The term, the secret place of tempest, means a place of thunder, which probably refers to the strong voice that the Israelites were afraid of when God spoke to them, and the cloud that descended on Mount Sinai, and which Moses entered to receive God's laws in the early days after the departure from Egypt. For I am the Lord thy God, who brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it. God fed the people in the desert with bread and birds from the sky, and with water drawn from rocks. But my people heard not my voice, and Israel hearkened not to me, so I let them go according to the desires of their heart. They shall walk in their own inventions. Their own inventions in this case refers to the idols worshipped by the Israelites, and the unwise social practices that they insisted on, like having a king. God didn't cause them to do these things, but he did allow them to, because people aren't like other animals. They have free will. If my people had heard me, if Israel had walked in my ways, I should soon have humbled their enemies, and laid my hand on them that troubled them. God reveals that the reason why the people have continued to have and be tormented by so many enemies is that they wouldn't follow his guidance. The enemies of the Lord have lied to him, and their time shall be forever. This means that the time in which the enemies of God need to experience suffering will last forever, not that they'll be admitted into eternal life. And he fed them with the fat of wheat, and filled them with honey out of the rock. Even the enemies of God get their food from him, whether they realize it or not, often from unexpected places. This is another psalm about the good things that God has done and the tragedy of those who receive what he gives them, but don't take it as a sign that they should trust him or follow his commandments or even his advice. God is not a tyrant. He's a loving father. When he tells us to do something, he's not doing it to be narcissistic and controlling. He's doing it because he knows it will benefit us in the long run. All of God's commandments should be taken in this kind of don't play ball in the freeway context. We should not only follow that sort of guidance, but be grateful that someone cares enough to give it to us.
That's all for now, so keep asking questions, and thanks for watching.